back to the to another episode. We just picked up. I really want to just pick up where we had left off. We were describing a little bit about your book, the AI, which I'm kind of dabbling in this particular time in my career.
And thank you for that, because there is so much education has to go on. I so appreciate you dabbling in that, because as you get smart at this, and you're probably already exponentially further ahead than I am, please share tools with me, because man, every time I think I know what's going on, I realize I have no clue. So please help me, Jeff.
Well, what I thought was so interesting today, and it's kind of flopped from what I read, but there's it's called Humane, and they're coming out with something you can clip onto your clothes, and so you'll have an AI basically assistant attached to you, and so you could speak to it, and then you'll take your palm of your hand and you'll set it up, and you'll actually read what's putting out onto your hand. So we're getting closer, but from my understanding, the reviews on that particular piece overheats pretty quickly, doesn't read real well, but you and I both know within a year that will probably be more dialed in, and we will start to utilize basically a virtual assistant.
Dude, when they start having brain implants for us to have a virtual assistant real time, Peter Diamandis, who's the founder of XPRIZE and Singularity University, has written a couple of books, and he wrote one about 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, called Abundance, and is talking about the history of the earth and how we are living in the most abundant time today than we ever have been. This was about 10 years ago. And he talked about the future and about where he thinks that we're coming. And it's amazing the stuff that he predicted then. When you fast forward 10, 12 years now as to what he's predicting now, he literally predicted over 10 years ago that we would be doing venture capitalism to mine meteorites that are flying around out that come close to Earth, because the cost to send up spacecraft to mine a meteorite and bring those precious metals back to Earth is exponentially cheaper than trying to find them on Earth. And now we're doing that. When he talked about it, it was like, yeah, sure. And now we're doing that. It's just, so there's a lot of smart people out there. Peter Diamandis is his name. He's written that book, and then he wrote another one called Bold as a follow-up. I'd recommend both of those to your listeners. It's awesome knowledge.
Well, when I come back in and edit this, I'll throw that up on the screen for those that want to check that out, and I'll also put a link to how to reach out to Daryl. So hopefully you've recognized some of the value that Daryl could bring, not just for your business but also for your life. I think they go hand in hand in so many cases, and we have a tendency, and from my point of view, we have a tendency to kind of dissect two parts of our life. One being a personal and one being a business. Mine has been blended as long as I can remember. I haven't had a role where I'm not basically on call. Your phone would ring at any given time with somebody, either it's a client or someone on the team that's in need. And so for me to sit back and say, I get it. If you're an 8 to 5 guy, that's all you do. The EOS system's probably not that important to you. But if you've got a side hustle, all of a sudden your life just got seriously blended, because this is just how it works. And so before I have you talk about that, Daryl, I want to point out one thing about you that I think is interesting. And I thought about this last night. So when you get in the EOS system, it talks about a visionary, and then it talks about an integrator or an implementer. And so when we look at this, and I'll allow you to kind of break that down, but what I noticed from you, and I think that I have a little bit in it to me too, but you are an entrepreneur, you are a visionary. You're very good at seeing things at a high level and a big general view, and seeing where something's going to go. As well as an integrator role, you can get so fine-tuned and to go in and take numbers and analyze them and crunch them, and then start to create a budget and write. You can do both very well, and that's to me, it's very uncommon. You get the visionaries, and we've experienced them where it's like shiny object. Where we've talked about this was you kind of coined that. We're like, whoa,
yeah, right.
Right past each other. But you have the ability to do both, and I think that's what really, when I look at the EOS system, you can coach to both sides of that very, very well.
Well, and thank you for that. The entrepreneurial operating system in EOS, I think one of the reasons why it appeals to me so much is that I'm a master's member of a program called the Strategic Coach. And if you want to put that up as a link on here as well, the strategic coach and Dan Sullivan, who founded this back in the 80s. I joined in the late 90s, and one of the most interesting things with the strategic coach is it very much talks about the concept of what we're taught all the time is that you can accomplish anything in life if you want to go accomplish it, right? So the only thing standing between you and your success is you,
Ourselves.
right? We have a tendency to blame all these other outside sources, but it's irrelevant. So for me, I very quickly understood Kolbe, Kolbe, and got certified in that, and realized that I'm an initiating fact finder, which means I am naturally inclined to go and get data. That's my first natural inclination is if I don't know something, I want to go find out. I'm curious, I'm inquisitive, and I'm very much I want to learn. Which ties into my strengths finder assessments, and you'll see a pattern here. I talk a lot about assessments. Where it said conventional wisdom is that you can't help anybody else until you help yourself first. You know, you've got to know thyself before you can try to help other people. So because my natural instinct is to learn, I'm okay. Well, I'm going to go learn everything I can. I literally have got books lined up of assessments and stuff I've done over the years. But I'm an initiating fact finder, and then I'm also an initiating quick start, which is unique for me because I have no problem stopping and going to research, but I have no problem. Okay, I've got enough research. Let's go. Which has been a challenge in my life because I can come across the wrong way when I do that, because somebody might not know that I spent 2 weeks researching stuff, and then somebody comes up with an idea, I'm already ready to go. Let's go, and then I can come across, as an asshole sometimes, pardon my French, and I don't mean to, but that is, I think, the challenge that we're presented with our interaction with people is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so me having the experience and knowledge of being a visionary, to the extent that I have had a little bit, and the experience and knowledge of being an integrator to the extent that I have a little bit. Now I'm an implementer, and what an implementer is that I'm an outside source that I work with everybody on leadership teams in entrepreneurial organizations to help them get what they want out of their business. And this is what is so incredible to me is I was working with a client yesterday that what they thought they wanted wasn't what they wanted. And what's so cool about this program, and the reason why I tie the strategic coach and Kolbe and EOS together is because Gino Wickman, the founder of EOS, was a master's member of strategic coach in a different group from me, but he took all these tools that have been ingrained in me and found a way to simplify them so that now as a coach, I can use them to help other people learn from this. And it's amazing to me. And how many times have you done this where you thought you wanted something, you went and got it and went, well, this isn't what I wanted. No. What EOS really helps you to do is to back up and say, okay, well, this is what you want out of your business. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's picture that. Let's draw that out. And again, yesterday with a client, they literally stopped and went, wait, who said this is what I wanted? And I go through the notes and I went, well, actually, you did. Well, I don't want that. Okay, it's the most amazing feeling to be able to help somebody to dig through the layers of really finding out what they want from their business, what they want from their life, and then helping them to go get it, drawing the map to get there. And that's really what EOS does.
Yeah, and from my experience, when we went through the coaching, it was like you go in, you want to improve, and it worked out really well because the visionary, the integrator are in the same room, and me being the integrator of Fairway, the mortgage business, I'm sitting there for the first year. Come in, made a lot of changes, some very hard to get through. A lot of pushback with some of the team. They're not used to it. They didn't like change.
Change is hard, right? Yeah, yep. Change in any organization, change is hard.
And so knowing that was going to be the case, it was fine. But then we got to a point where I'm like, where am I going with this? And I have no idea. Why am I making changes when I don't really know if this is even what we're supposed to be doing? And so to have us down there together and then seeing the look of the visionary's face when you're told, yep, give us the vision. And all of a sudden, wait a second, what? I can't just run and everybody just kind of does what I wanted. And so there was an eye-opening awakening. And so I think people that get into this, there's so much that comes out of the visionary. And ultimately, I'm like, it's their dough. It's their money. They're
Right.
the ones that created this. Your paycheck's reliant on their performance.
Right.
And so to get those thoughts on paper and get those thoughts together now gives us at least a starting point to say, what is it that we want to do? And where you come in is just, well, that's a very minimal part of this. But then to take that and go, let's make something of this, and then have the accountability to keep going with it. That's the hardest part of it all, is it not?
Well, and really, truly, what we do is that, as I said, we help people get what they want out of their business by providing a complete system of simple tools that really helps in three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. And from a vision standpoint, what we mean is really getting everybody in the organization 100% on the same page to where they're going and how they're going to get there. Once we figure that out, which is amazing how many, like you said, you went down there, your visionary goes, wait, what? It's amazing how many people they don't draw that out. We have a simple set of tools to help them draw that out. Traction is very much from a standpoint of getting all the leaders to become more disciplined and more accountable, really executing well as a team to get that vision. And healthy. Healthy is really meaning that the leaders are functional, cohesive, and they're operating as a team, because really many times leadership teams aren't, right? And so from there, what we've discovered is as the leadership team goes in BTH, so goes the rest of the organization. And so we get the companies to a point where the organization's crystal clear on their vision. They're much more disciplined on how they're actually being held accountable to executing on that vision. And they're gaining traction in a healthy and functional way. That's what we do. And it's amazing when we talk to people and we get them in a room where it's a no charge meeting, really, is what we do, for 90 minutes. And we walk through, we set the stage, we talk about their company and understand where they are, how they got there, and where they want to go. And then we really turn the tools on them, where we explain what this looks like, and then we explain the process. And it's amazing how it's an opportunity for people to go, I was going this way, I think I want to go that way, but now I'm discovering that what I really want is this way. And this draws all that out. It's amazing how it transforms people's lives. And like I said, it completely changed my life. And because my UA statement out of Strategic Coach is to positively impact people's lives, I now get to use this simple set of tools to impact other people's lives. And it's, Jeff, I've never been as happy and engaged in helping people in this way in my life. And yet I've realized that for the last 20 years in my coaching company, this is why I started my coaching company in the first place. So you talk about the experience of, this is what I want. No, I'm going to go this way. No, I'm going to go that way. It took me, I'm a slow learner. It took me a while, but I got there.
And I think that reminds me of something that what I find relatable to you. Here I sit at 53 years old, and you go, hey, I've been doing this mortgage thing for 20 years. You go through a challenging real estate market. A lot of people are getting out. Real estate agents. We won't even go into, well, we probably will for a hot second with you running for vice president for the National Association of Realtors. That would be interesting today with the NAR settlement. But a lot of things changing in the market, and a lot of people are getting out. And now you start to have a lot of those doubts will creep in, and you start to say, okay, what is my purpose? When you wake up in the morning, are you energized? You are. So you go through decades of this, and now here you are. We won't share ages. Let's just say mid-50s. And you go, hey, you know what? I finally hit it. And I've lived in fear. I just had this conversation with my wife yesterday. As I said, she's like, you have something inside of you. I'd really like to have you talk to somebody sometime and really get deep down inside, touch you down and into your soul, and find out what is that thing in there. And I said, you know what? I believe it to be. I think that it is. I don't feel like I don't think I've ever lived my life to my fullest potential. I think that I've been downgrading some of my talents. I've had a lot of people say some things, but I go, I've never lived up to it. And for that, I have remorse. And I also go, my gosh, I'm 53 years old and I've let my life slip away. And I'm like,
So
53,
so
I
hang
still
on a
got a
second.
ton
So
of time.
I got two things in that. The first one is don't look back.
Right.
An exercise that I use with people a lot is it's called The Gap and the Gain, and there's a great book from Dan Sullivan and a PhD that helped them to write it as well. But it's called The Gap and the Gain. And you imagine a sheet of paper, and on this sheet of paper you have a dot on this side, which is where you were, a dot in the middle, which is where you are, and a dot on the right side, which is where you wish you were. You have two choices. What most people do is look at where they were and look at where they wish they were and go, man, I suck. Because you're focusing on the gap. You're focusing on, oh man, I wasted my life. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Well, I should have been at this horizon, the pot of gold, the end of the horizon. You ever seen a rainbow? You remember when you were a kid and you see a rainbow, you're like, Mom, Dad, we can get there. We can get there. And you drive straight for it, bat out of hell. And you never get any closer to the rainbow. It's like the horizon. You'll never get to the horizon. Even in the movies, there's a movie called Event Horizon that you don't get to the horizon, right? You can't. Well, the challenge is on these three dots, you have to measure your progress. Where are you today versus where you were 10 years ago? And if you go back and do that exercise, you're going to go, holy crap, look at all the great things that have happened in my life. What happens when you measure your progress is it gives you energy. Yep. And when you have that positive energy, you get on your toes, you lean into the future. When you look backwards and you go, man, I suck because I'm not where I wanted to be, it depletes your energy. It puts you on your heels. It pulls you back, as you said, remorse. So number one, don't honestly always look at what happened in your past and be grateful. Thank God all this happened to get me to realize where I am and the future I have in front of me. Number one. Number two, I love the story, and this is of course embellished, right? So you can go and search this story, but it's about KFC, right? And Colonel Sanders. The story goes is that he was writing his last will and testament when he was 60 some years old, I think 64 or 68. He was writing his will saying that he basically sucked. He was a line cook for 40 some years. He didn't accomplish anything with his wife. It devolved down into a suicide note where he's like, well, I haven't done anything. I'm worthless. And then as he's writing it, this is the power of journaling, as he's writing it, he realizes, well, I actually really do know how to cook chicken really well. As goes to what you said before, that you've had people tell you that there are some things that you're really, really good at that you don't really pay attention to. We can get into that separately. But the point is about Colonel Sanders, is he literally realized in writing his will that devolved into a suicide note that clarified for him that, well, I can do chicken really well. 10 years later, he was a billionaire. Because he went and started selling his chicken door to door. One thing happened, nothing happened, ended up opening a restaurant, opened another one. Somebody came in, helped him franchise it, licensed his name, and 10 years later at 78, he's a billionaire. So when you're in your midlife crisis, right? Our midlife crisis used to be when we were 20, then 30, then 40, 50. It just keeps changing, right? I think the opportunity for everybody is to stop. Slow down. Journal. Where was I 10 years ago and where am I now and what have I accomplished? And it will transform how you look at, okay, well, actually, I did this and that. And oh, yeah, we went on this trip and, my kids graduated and we got this and whatever. And you start realizing you can't count on your hands and your fingers and toes how many great things have happened, but we discount them. And we discount them because of all we're seeing in the media now. All we see in the media now is that the world's ending. Oh my God, the world's ending, number one. And then number two is social media. We're never going to be good enough. And as Tony Robbins, the worldwide coach, Tony Robbins, talks about is that all humans have two fears, that they're not going to be good enough and that they're not going to be loved. Well, if you watch social media and you compare yourself to others, you're never going to live up. And if you watch the news, nobody loves you because the world's ending anyway. Well, there's our two sources of our two biggest fears. You've got to really stop internalizing. You've got to externalize it based on that piece of paper with three dots and look at the progress you've made, get on your toes, and imagine what the possibilities are in the future. That's for the opportunity.
I think this is where, like EOS, when you take it and go, okay, here, this is what it is. It says it's for business. You flip that around, it's totally for your life. And
yes,
what you just said was exactly where this EOS thing goes. It never says, well, where were you a year ago? Doesn't matter. That's
Yeah.
irrelevant, like you had said. And what it does, though, it says, what do you want in 90 days? What do you want in a year, 3 years,
Yeah.
10 years? And when you have that vision of a 10-year plan, you're striving towards something. And so you just kind of eloquently put it in a position where it's like when you said that, you basically, me being me, I just basically put myself in the past saying, well, I didn't lead up to what it was I want. Well, I'm not there yet.
Right.
The story's not
Right.
over.
Yep.
And like it really at 53, I'm like, I've wasted my time. I just look at my health and all these different things over the last decade or last 15 years of where I was, and amazing strides. But we need to be reminded of that. And I think that's what you just did it, right? See, this is what I'm talking about. You just did this with me on this episode, and that's the stuff where I'm like, if you need that person in your life, and you're like, you know what, because you can come in and say, well, I've got a friend or I've got this free source, because if you pay, you stay accountable, and
Yeah.
you make sure that you do those things, and
And I think, speaking of that, one of the great things with EOS is that we have a guarantee. So we've got this whole structured, proven process. We've actually now helped. I think there's about 700 of us around the world that are licensed to do this, that are trained to do this. That we go to boot camp, and it literally is like boot camp. I love that at the end of the second day they said, okay, so we're going to take 30 minutes for dinner. And I don't know if that's enough time for you to eat or not, but you better come back to the room. The room will be open until 2 a.m. and session starts at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So I'd advise you use your time wisely. And it's like, oh, and there was some of us that were up, like, you're just hammering through the lessons, right? But I think the big point with this is that one of the things that we offer in this whole system is a guarantee. So you spend a session day with me, which is 7 hours plus or minus an hour, and if you don't get value at the end of the session, you don't pay. 100% guaranteed. If you don't get value from what we do together, there's no charge. We don't sign contracts. We ask for long-term mental commitments from our clients because, it's like I went to the gym in January, like, oh yeah, I'm in shape. Like, you can't, this is not a dabble thing. Like if you want to change your life, you got to dig in, right? So, but we don't sign contracts. We don't expect commitments letters. We don't do any of that. We're here to help you. And we don't sell any of our clients, because if they don't want the help, no problem. Like, when you're ready, we're here. And it's amazing how that system works. So the guarantee is just proof in the pudding as to how this literally changes people's lives, and not just their business, but their lives.
So I think we would both agree. Well, you've said it. You found, I think, let's call it your purpose, your mission in life, and maybe it's not exactly the way that you expected it, but it's close. And you're obviously, it's very clear that you're super passionate about what you're doing. You wake up in the morning with purpose. You wake up in the morning with
I get to, right?
You get
And
to.
honestly, Jeff, I knew this 20 years ago, and I didn't do it. And the only reason why I didn't do it was fear. It was the voice in your head. Yeah, but what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? And quite frankly, if I go back to your story, how you started it, like the last 10 years, if I go back to what I knew 20 years ago, I wrote this out. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is my UA. This is what I will do. And I started my coaching company. I said, yeah, one day. And then I got busy. Yeah. Instead of living my dream, doing what I believe I should have done, I spent 20 years. Well, now I look and go to all the experience of those 20 years that I could either look backwards and go, man, I wasted 20 years. I should have started this 20 years ago. Or I can look backwards and go, wow, thank God this happened. Thank God I did not do this 20 years ago, because look at all of the lessons that I've learned. Lessons, I use that word loosely. What I mean is look at how many times I've failed in 20 years to learn those lessons, because you learn from your mistakes. I've got to make thousands of mistakes in the last 20 years that now I'm allowed to reflect on that, to go, oh man, yeah, well, that knowledge is helpful, because then when other people are in that position, you can say, well, I don't know what the right thing for you to do is, but I can give you some comparatives and help people make the decision on what they want to do, you know?
Well, and through those 20 years too, and I think about this too, like if you look over the span of your life, the people that you've met that are still connections, you're one of them for me. I mean, it'd be easily for me to when I left Fargo to say, okay, all these people are behind, and there's some that I wish I could stay in touch with more, but for whatever reason I haven't yet. But maybe
you always can. You always can.
Yeah, that's kind of my new mission the last couple of years is to try reconnect with people, and then hold myself to it. But all those relationships and all those things all mount up, and like you said, with your experiences. And I think one of the last conversations we had, you used a word, and I really like you to kind of wrap. I know you'll have a call coming up here pretty soon for your business, but you use the word decide. And I think that's a word that so many people get hung up on. We're really good at saying, when I hear it now, I stop people. I'm thinking about doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you're doing it, or you're thinking about it, because you're either thinking about it, or you're planning it, and you're moving forward, or you're just sitting and thinking about it. Or I'm thinking about doing it, and it never comes to fruition. And you use the word decide, and you said fear not too long ago, and you kind of walked me through a little bit of that. Talk a little bit about the decisions, and fear, but that word decide, you just went through it. You made a decision, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, fear is usually made up in our head, right? And yet fear is what paralyzes us. Because now we're looking at, well, what if this, what if this, what if this? And then we're not looking at it being, well, what if? What if? What if? We look at, well, yeah, but what if? And so it literally is, what if the future, or what if, this is bad. And I totally appreciate the risk reward side of it. However, I think the biggest opportunity for people is you have to make a decision. You have to decide, at what point am I going to be in control of my future? And so, which is coming up on a while ago now, but I had, when I first started really digging into EOS, and I went to convention, and I went and got trained and got certified and everything a few years ago, it really opened up my eyes that I was not deciding. Or I would lay the line down and say, this is the line in the sand, and then I would find a way to rationalize why the line moved. And then it moved again, and it moved again.
Oh, true.
And at the end of the day, it all comes down to, what do you want out of your life? Where do you want to be? And I literally have in front of my screen, and I've had this as a reality check now for 20 plus years. Okay. And I don't even need to look at it, but it's here. I can, it's called my reality check. And the first question is can somebody else do this? Meaning, do you have to do this? There's a great book by the founders of Basecamp called It Doesn't Have to Be This Crazy at Work. And in the middle of the book, it's got no, and it's KNOW, no. And it talks about the power of saying no. So my first rule, my first filter, can somebody else do this, right? The second filter is am I doing this out of fear? About 99% of the crap that we do every day can get stopped by those two filters. Do I really need to do this? No. Okay, well, yes, I do. Am I doing this out of fear? Yep. Okay, well, don't do it, right? And then the third one is this going to help me get me or my company to my bigger future? Well, the ones that make it through those first three filters, well, have you defined your bigger future? So I would challenge you, Jeff, when you said in the last 10 years of the things you've done, and you're in the mid 50s now, whatever. Well, did you articulate, lay out, and have a plan for exactly where you wanted to be when you were 53, or did you think about it?
Thought about it.
And what was your thinking on your thinking? Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you never actually drew a roadmap out, right? I've been thinking about going on an African safari for about the last 10 years. Have I booked the ticket yet? No. I could go on an African safari next week if I wanted to, but I just have to decide. But I haven't yet. And then finally, the fourth filter is if I can only get 3 things done today, is this really one of them? And the reason I'm saying this is can somebody else do this? Yes or no? Well, yeah, I don't need to do that. Okay, well, is this truly something that I'm doing because I want to, or am I afraid? Well, what if? The FOMO, right? This is all ego. 99% of your decisions stop right there. Now you got the last 1%. You got 2 real big questions. Is this going to help you get to your bigger future? Yes or no? And if you only get 3 things done today, is this it? Boy, the discipline you need to live in that space is crazy. That's why coaching helps. That's why writing it out. That's the power of what EOS does too. Is it really helps to take, this is where I want to be in 10 years. This is what this looks like in 3 years. This is what I have to do this year. This is what I'm going to do this quarter in the next 90 days. And these are my issues standing in front of me accomplishing these in the next 90 days. When you start operating a system like that, you literally are like, holy crap. And it works in your personal life. I've done our personal VTO, and this is one thing to realize. It's an EOS term. It's a vision traction organizer. So what's your vision, 10 years, 3 years, and then you flip it over in the back, and what's your how you're going to gain traction on this. I've done about 15 iterations with my wife and I, and it is amazing how she took a dream of where she wanted to be in five or 10 years, and we got that down to 5 years. And then because it's a 3-year picture, she's like, well, actually, if a bunch of these things happen, we could be here in 3 years. And we flip it over and go, okay, so what has to happen this year for us to be in line with that? And it is amazing how the noise starts going away. This is what I really want. And now she literally is now saying 6 months into our last iteration, this actually is, this is happening. Like you get energy. This is happening, right?
And you're not talking about the what ifs. The what ifs. Like you said, it totally changes from the focus becomes what actions am I taking to move forward versus what are the horrible outcomes that could happen with this.
And it goes to, instead of making the decision out of fear, you're deciding this is the future I want. This is what's important for me to do today. So instead of doing this, I'm going to do that to get what I want. And it's so much harder than I'm making it sound right now, because we've got a 2 million year old brain that is ingrained with how we operate. And this has taken a jackhammer to the neurons in our brain to create new pathways. And you've got to have help to do that. You've got to have somebody that's going to give you the push when you need it, the nudge when you need it, the pat on the back when you need it, the kick in the butt when you need it. You've got to have somebody that works through that jackhammer exercise to rewire how you naturally operate to get you what you naturally deserve, which is your future.
Well, Daryl, I know you got to go, and we will keep this one in a bite size as well. But
Perfect.
As always, these conversations that we've had, I've just pulled some things out of that. And is like you said, it's not that hard to sit down and say, that really is my next step, is to say, what is it that I want in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and start that. So I hope the listeners on here, if whether coaching is for you or not, is for you to decide. But as Daryl said, it's a 90-minute discussion that doesn't cost you anything. I think it would be worth your time to learn about it. I know that it helped our business, so I'm hoping that it would help yours as well. And on the flip side of it, I'm always going to get something good from Daryl either way. I love it. So there's a lot of gems in there that will be great clips.
Well, and it's truly, Jeff, it's my pleasure, and I'm happy to I love having these kinds of conversations as well, especially if we can reach more people. And I do just want to say one last thing. I as you said about all the books and stuff that I've read. So when the book called The EOS Life came out, The EOS Life, I made a commitment in 2023 that I was going to read or listen to that book 26 times in 2023. So that meant at least once every 2 weeks, I was going to read or listen to that book. And I probably read or listened to it about 40 times. I still carry it around with me every day today. And the big reason why is because it's the simplicity of it. To live your best life, there's only 5 rules to follow. The first one is to do what you love. Do it with people you love. Make a huge impact with those around you. Be compensated fairly while you're doing it, and have time for other passions in your life. That's the EOS life. And you talk about decide. He's written a follow-up book called Shine now that is about the 10 disciplines that are in the back of the EOS life. And how Gino says it is, he says, I just wanted to give this away for free. I mean, I could make a book someday, I guess. And sure enough, he's now written a book about it because he dug way deeper into it. But there's 10 disciplines for living your EOS life. And if the people listening to this literally take action and pick up on any of the books that I suggested, but the concept of the US life, imagine you, Jeff, you and your wife and your family doing what you love with people you love, making a huge impact with those around you, being compensated appropriately for the talent that you're bringing to the table, and having time for other passions. Could you imagine what your life would be like?
So I think what everybody wants.
And that's this book gives you tools on how to do it, and which is why you hear a lot in coaching. Don't do a whole bunch of things at a really shallow level. Do a few things and go real deep. Which is why 26 times I've had people think that I was insane. What are you, nuts? And I'm like, well, I didn't do it 26 times. Well, of course you didn't. And I'm like, it was about 40. And they're like, what? But now it becomes that remember the jackhammer I said in your brain? It becomes the rewiring. And truly, I'd encourage your listeners, that whatever you want to get out of your next 10 years out of life, you just got to rewire some of your thinking. And there are so many tools out there that can help you do it. And it would be my pleasure to help any way I can.
Well, Daryl, you're a positive influence on business owners, your community, the real estate community nationwide. By the way, we never even got to that, but you always come with so much positivity. I'm definitely going to ask you to come back and do this again.
My pleasure.
Anytime. Not so far future, because I think that there's so much value and knowledge that you bring with the experience and all of that. So I thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I know you got to run here in the next couple of minutes, but we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and good luck to you, man. I'm always here. Let's keep talking.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye-bye.